5:30, and we will call this special meeting to order. We will stand and have an invitation. Michael, would you mind doing the invitation, please?
Our Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this day. We thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for the opportunity for the City Council to deliberate on the business of the city, and we pray you would guide these deliberations. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the American flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Our roll call, Councilman Glen.
Here.
Councilman Johnson.
Here.
Councilman, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Douglas. Here. And Councilman Martin.
Here.
Good, everyone's here, thank you. Okay, we are here tonight for one item agenda, and that is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding City Attorney Pendleton's determination that no official grievance exists in connection with Oakdale Park Director Joslin because of the city's grievance procedures as set forth in the city's personnel policy were not followed. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone who signed up?
Nobody signed up, no ma'am.
Okay. Hello. Okay, you all have been given information, and what we are wanting to do, and you can go through, this is all associated with Ms. Johnson's employee evaluation, and when it was signed, response to follow, but I do not believe he met the, and he can always respond, but as far as filing this as a grievance, he did not do with the procedure set forth in our policy. Those were not followed. So I'm open for discussion if you all have anything. Johnny?
I've got a question. I'm reading this here from Mr. Johnson about, he said to file an official grievance, and I haven't seen a copy of the grievance, I don't guess. He filed a copy of the grievance when Michael returned from vacation, and he filed it within 5 days of everything becoming a true incident. So, of a true incident, what, is that spelled out in the grievance that he filed, what the incident was that started the 5-day clock?
But I believe the thing is it did not go on 5 days. I believe it was received 10 days after. And even though Mr. Lemons was on vacation, it could have been sent by email, it could have been sent by regular mail, it could have been hand delivered, or it could have been posted marking that day. So he was out of timeline as far as what we have in our personnel policy, that there's 5 days to do grievance.
Does the grievance actually say what the incident was, that why I'm filing a grievance?
I know he listed a bunch of things on his letter, but I don't see actual, when I read this, I don't remember seeing my grievance with this is, because I know that some of the things that you and Mr. Lemon talked, y'all had a meeting and y'all visited, and there are some things that can't be fixed. There are some things that are working, and there are some things that y'all have discussed and come upon. But as far as my grievance is, this, I don't have it, not pertaining to the evaluation. Mr. Bryant?
So these emails that are supplied to us right here, who submitted those?
Go ahead, Michael.
Pardon me. I submitted those.
Was Mr. Joslin, was he notified to submit any type of emails for this particular discussion? 'Cause I see the ones you submitted, but I don't, I mean, are these the only ones, or are there more, or is this?
Mr. Joslin sent all of us an email,
Okay.
and it was a copy of what he had previously sent Michael. I think it was 9 or 10 pages, I'm not sure. I just have to go back and pull it back up.
So let me ask you, so who approved this meeting? Who approved this meeting?
Well, I called it because I understood that there were, I asked Michael to forward the letter to our attorney to make sure that we were correct, that this was not the policy, the procedure in our personnel policy was not followed. And I just wanted to have an opinion, not personal opinion, but a legal opinion to make sure that the policy was not followed. And then there was a response from Mr. Joslin that said he had no right to determine if this was a grievance or not. And I thought there might be some problems, so I called this special meeting so we could determine if it was indeed a grievance followed with those procedures as followed in our personnel handbook.
So you called it, who authorized it? I mean, was it approved by city attorney, city administrator?
The city administrator did, yes.
Okay,
But
so I'm probably gonna shut this meeting down right now, because here, I'm gonna speak my mind. Okay, first of all, we're being supplied with some information from one side. Why is there even information about that in here? Why are we discussing that? We're here to approve an ordinance or a policy. And
No.
No, Mayor, I'm gonna
Okay,
finish.
but I just want to tell you, we've already approved the policy.
Okay,
so
we're here
go ahead.
we're here to approve that the policy is in fact intact. But on the other side, we've got information from the city administrator. This has turned into pretty much a conversation about what happened in the process. Nobody has spoken to Mr. Joslin, I guess, about the emails or the supply emails. So I'm confused about that. And I'm also confused about the structure of this meeting. What's the purpose of discussion? Is it to talk about Mr. Joslin? Because I can tell you right now,
It is
no,
not.
it is, because you have. You
No,
have.
it
No,
is
let me
not
finish,
talk.
Mayor. You have. And that's what I said. Who approved this? Who approved this meeting? Because right now, I'm telling you, you opened a meeting and you're in violation of employee privacy. You are not discussing an ordinance. You are discussing an employee privacy topic.
Number one,
And
I
I'm-
am not. I am
Yes, you are.
discussing, because it was brought to our attention that this was a grievance, and the response was, it was not, procedures were not followed that are in our personnel policy.
Okay, then we
Okay,
should
so
have
that's all
discussed,
we
we
need
should have
to
discussed the
discuss.
personnel policy. You didn't. You brought up Mr. Joslin's name as an employee. This grievance, his grievance was submitted privately to the city administrator. Right now, you have opened it in public records and made that an open records subject, which has violated an employee rights. I can
Well,
tell you, I've already.
actually, a
No.
personnel record can be available, because
You
you can
can't-
tell the dates
This
that they were.
particular meeting, this particular subject was requested to be an executive session twice that I know of. Once by me, once by an employee, it was denied. Why was that denied, first of all? And second of all, we aired out a employee's personal information and not only embarrassed the city by this, by airing dirty laundry, but we violated a citizen's or employee's rights. I don't care what you say. I know, I've been to TML enough, I made enough phone calls. We have, by opening this meeting, even mentioning his name. You're not discussing a policy. You're discussing an employee's personal and private conversations and rights that he has held by filing a grievance. So what I suggest, because let me remind the council, we're here to protect the citizens. So what happens is, not only is the full council responsible for any kind of a grievance or liability for any kind of litigation, each and every one of you elected positions are responsible outside the city. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recommend this subject matter be closed, taken to executive session like it was requested twice, and that'll be the end of it, because right now you're just digging yourself a hole. You cannot discuss a city employee's grievance or any personal matter. You shouldn't even mention his name. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna excuse myself from this meeting, and I suggest you close the meeting and we visit this in executive session in December.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Mr. Bond?
I may be mistaken, but I don't read anything in here that pertains to Mr. Joslin's performance review. The only thing that I'm reading in here is the timing of the exchange of messages and rebuttals and so forth between them.
And that is what we are talking about, whether the timeline was met, and whether if the timeline was met, then do we need to move forward with this and put it on a meeting? If the timeline was not met, do we need to say, I'm sorry, the timeline was not met as set forth in our personnel policy? And that's what we need to determine. Any other discussions or questions or comments? Ms. Douglas?
So I've read the contents of all of these emails as well as the letter that we received from Mr. Joslin, and I do believe that there are some things that need to be addressed, but the way that this particular item is written on this agenda, we can't talk about any of them. So I do agree that those items probably do need to be discussed. There are some issues, and that does need to be handled in an executive session, but I know we can't do anything on that today. So I do agree that we should probably have an executive session in December to discuss these issues that have been brought to light, because we can't discuss anything other than if he's following our procedures or not today.
Okay. Any other comments on this, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, like I said, follow up on this also in executive session, because we're talking about a $4 million commitment. I think it needs to be talked about, some problems worked out.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
My understanding.
And you need to come up, I'm sorry, you need to come up to the mic and tell us who you are and your address.
Hi, my name is Sheila Ambrose, and currently I'm residing at Oakdale as a work camper. My question is, my understanding is is it 5-day time period from the time of the grievance to present it? But does it stipulate that, that time frame, if the person that the grievance is to be presented for is not present, that time that person's not present is included in that 5-day time frame?
It's just a 5-day time frame, and because there are numerous ways for that person, it has to be postmarked or it has to be documented, and so there are opportunities. Now, fortunately, we don't have to wait on snail mail, but we do have email. We do have, because it's such a close location, it could have been hand delivered, and it could have been sent by registered mail.
Okay.
And so the 5-day grievance, yes, they just have 5 days. to
So
present
it doesn't
agreements.
have to be presented to any one person, it can be presented to anybody in the city?
It could, no, it needed to go back to the city administrator, but it could have been sent to him, or it could have been delivered with his name on it.
Okay, but in the ordinance, does it state that those are the options for delivery?
I'm gonna let Mr.
It
Pickleton.
states 5 working days, written notice to the supervisor. Is what it says in the ordinance.
Okay, but it doesn't stipulate how that's to be presented?
Just says written notice,
In 5 days.
5 working days,
Mayor, can I?
to the supervisor.
Yes.
So I understand, I'm following where you're going with this, but we're not here to talk about his grievance. We're here to talk about if we can even deal with his grievance or not. So if we do decide that this is a grievance and that we should allow it, we can't talk about the contents of it. That's something we're gonna have to handle in executive session at another time.
Right.
There.
Yes, sir. Would you please go and give your name?
Chris Bryant, 301 Grace Street, speaking as a citizen and City Councilman, I'm gonna ask Brady Pendleton, just like Julia Douglas just said, we're not allowed to speak that, but yet you still continue to it. You're digging yourselves a hole. You cannot speak about an employee's grievance. You can speak about the policy, but you still continue, each one of you still continue to speak and allow this meeting to go on about the personal grievance filed by an employee. This is an executive session subject matter. I'm telling you, Mr. Pendleton, you, as a city attorney, you're paid to protect the city. You need to cancel this meeting immediately. You know as well as I do, we're discussing an employee personnel matter. That is outside of an executive session. And you're letting it continue. You are making the city council liable for any litigation in the future.
Like I said, this is not my meeting to run, Mr. Bryant. I disagree. I mean, this is no liability for the city for the conversation being had at this point. Like I said, I will do my job as instructed, but like I said, I'm not in charge of running the meeting, so I'll
As
defer to
instructed,
you guys.
who instructed you?
Well, I mean, as you sit here today, as you guys want to conduct your meeting, I'm not going to sit there and set the policy and set the agenda for you guys. I'd be more than happy to if you want me to, but
Okay, well,
That's not my
TML
job.
says
Okay,
no.
thank you. So we have had discussion. Is there anyone else who has anything he wants to say? All right, let's consider and take possible action regarding City Attorney Pendleton's determination that no official grievance exists in connection with Oakdale Park Director Jocelyn because of the city's grievance procedures as set forth in the city's personnel policy were not followed. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we move this to executive session in December.
The whole thing, or just the fact
The whole
that the
thing.
grievance, that this is not a grievance?
The entire thing.
if you wanted, if you need an executive session, you want to list the person and the position. If you're going to request an executive session item specifically, you couldn't really list this item as an executive session item. So you need to request a personnel matter. I mean, there's a specific provision regarding what evaluation, termination of a Oakdale Park Director.
Okay, well then I make a motion that we move this matter to an executive session in December as personnel matter to discuss not only the grievance in the process, but also the contents contained therein.
Mr. Lemon?
Is there still opportunity for discussion, Mayor?
Yes.
I'm concerned because we have policies that the city council has adopted that we, staff, it's our intention to follow. And in this case, we were following the policies as written. Whenever the matter arose, I consulted the mayor, who is the chief executive officer of the city, who has a responsibility for enforcing the city's policies and ordinances. And she asked that I consult with the city attorney, and I consulted with him, and he determined that there is no grievance under the city's policies. So if the city council is going to take this up as a grievance, then the city council is not following the policies. And my question is, are there other policies that the city council is not going to follow? And it causes a concern.
Questions or comments?
I do.
Okay. Please state your name and address.
Bryant, 301 Gray Street. The fact that we're following policy has nothing to do, again, with someone filing a grievance. The policy is in place. The grievance is a different matter. Right now, what we're trying to do, what the council's trying to do, the mayor and council administrator is trying to do is silence the employee. Because there's a lot of other things that are being said. There's an other side to this story that they're trying to prevent the council from hearing. That's why 2 executive sessions were denied. One by the employee, one by myself. So they're trying to establish this, but do as you may. But you know, if this fails, all it takes is 3 city council members to get an executive session in December.
And I will say something, and then we'll see if we want to vote on what Julia, if I have a second on what Julia has said. What we do in December truly has nothing right now. The only thing we want to talk about right now is if our personnel policy was followed. If that timeline in our personnel policy was followed. If there is something else that we need to take to an executive session, That is one thing. The only thing that we are looking at today is if the timeline of 5 days was followed, as we have said in our personnel policy, and you know, we've just recently gone over all the personnel policies, we've all agreed on this, it was all voted on. So the only thing, then if we need to have a meeting in December to have a executive session, we can do that. But the only thing at this point is to determine if we have a grievance procedure, if that procedure followed our city's personnel policy. Now, with that being said, do I have a motion to Ms. Ritchie?
So the only thing you guys can make a motion on today is you can either just let it lie like it is, or you either agree or disagree that the policy was followed. You cannot call for an executive session today.
Correct.
The mayor can put that on, or 3 council people
Correct.
can put that on as a special request, but you guys can't make a motion to do that in tonight's
Correct.
meeting.
Correct. So today we either decide if personnel policy was followed, or we don't have a vote. So, having said that, is there a motion to vote on whether or not personnel policy was followed? If there's a motion, then we'll take it now.
May I make a comment?
You may make a comment.
Raise a question. Question I would like to raise is I'm looking at the first paragraph of grievance procedures down at the bottom. It says, he or she may submit a written grievance to his or her supervisor within 5 working days after the cause of the grievance arises or becomes known to the employee. Now, a little bit vague there, but I'm reading that as if the employee delivers the grievance within 5 days, does it really matter if the supervisor is in the office to receive it, or has it just been delivered to the supervisor's office as per se?
The supervisor, the way I understand, and Brady, I expect your opinion on
Please,
this,
John,
your
whatever.
legal opinion. It does not say you have to put it in that supervisor's hands. It just says it has to be delivered to the supervisor. And there are several ways, as I've already said, of ways to deliver it. Regardless of what it is, whether someone is here or not, you know, if we have mail that we need to have, it's here where we're sitting. For example, all those magazines, you know, it didn't come in and say, oh, it has to be done by X number of times or X number of days, or Stephanie would have delivered that and brought it to us. So, as long as it was delivered to the office of the supervisor and either brought it in, had his name on it, give this to the supervisor, give this to Mr. Lemons. If it was emailed, because that's a personal thing, none of us have his email address. Well, I mean, we all have his address, but we don't have his passwords, and whether it was put in the mail and he could come back and deliver another one and say, I sent it certified mail by this time. So it just says 5 working days.
Got one more statement?
Someone's ahead of you. Please come up.
Hi, again, I'm Sheila Ambrose, residing at Oakdale. I hear what you're saying, but the reverse could also be true, based on somebody's understanding of the statute or the policy.
Okay.
You're saying that it says that it should be given to the supervisor regardless where the supervisor is, as long as it's in the vicinity of the office or the supervisor. But somebody that is more black and white rather than gray areas, more literal, can read that saying, okay, it has to be delivered to your supervisor, okay? It is a confidential matter. Computers get hacked, and that's a no matter. And some people are more prone to hand delivering and interpersonal contact than they are through technology. I'm personally one of them. And so if I were reading that statute and I had to present a grievance to my supervisor who's out of town for the next 5 days, I'm going to wait until my supervisor's back so that I can hand it to him. So
Okay.
that policy is wide open to interpretation.
Okay,
And
thank you very
so-
much. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Last comment from Mr. Bryant, and then we're gonna see if,
Okay.
usually we just give each person one opportunity to speak.
Chris Bryant, 301 Grace Street, okay. This is a smart council. I hate that I have to keep pointing out these facts, but this is turning into a one-sided courtroom. You've got evidence and documentation of something from the administration. While these items are being discussed aside, whether it's a grievance or not, where is the other person's information? With that being said, what is the grievance? We don't know what the grievance is. We didn't get it in our package. What's the grievance? Second of all, with their idea of a grievance may be something else within that package. So if you're talking about an evaluation grievance, maybe he missed the 5 days, but that grievance may be a subject of different matters, which you're not seeing. How do you know you're approving that his grievance did not meet policy? You don't know. You don't have the grievance. They're not letting you see it. I'm telling you, there's more to this. I would not approve anything. I would play it safe and just let it die, and we can have the executive session to discuss this like it's supposed to be.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bryant. Okay, this is still up. We have to determine if a response was filed within the 5-day personnel policy, or if it was not. And as far as
That's not the,
deliberating,
that's no.
excuse me, if you are through, you may leave, or you may sit there quietly.
You have to have.
Do you understand me
I
on this
understand
matter?
you. You have to have 4 votes to get me out of here, Mayor. I don't think
You
you'll
know
get 4
what?
votes.
No, but you can be quiet.
I will, but read the agenda item correctly.
I have read it correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Lemons?
Madam Mayor, if I may make the council aware that we did notify Mr. Joslin of this meeting on Saturday, and he was given the agenda item, and he had an opportunity where he could have presented information to this council on this topic matter. And I understand, I did not receive it, but I understand that the city council was provided a copy of the grievance, what was identified as a grievance by email.
And I still have the email if we needed to pull that up, okay, and it was addressed to every one of us. But the only thing I want to discuss tonight is this. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding City Attorney Pendleton's determination that no official grievance exists in connection with Oakville Park's Director Joslin because of the city's grievance procedures as set forth in the personnel policy were not followed. Tonight, that is the only thing we are looking at to determine if we will follow the personnel policy or if we won't follow the personnel policy, and that's it. Mr. Martin.
One option we have is let it lie, is that right?
You guys can always
I'll
do
make a
that.
motion and we just let it lie.
So no action taken on
I have
his
a
part.
motion to let it lie.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to let it lie. All in favor? All opposed? Jack, were you in favor? Or were you
Yes.
opposing? Okay. Then at this point, we will leave this as it is, and we will determine at a later date if this is on the other next agenda. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Good job, council.